Mitra, invariably in our lives, we deal with significant endings. It could be someone significant in our life passing on. It could be the ending of a relationship. It could be moving homes, going to a whole new city. It could be changing jobs. They all are experienced in some way as some form of death. And you right now are confronted with a inevitable ending that is coming. Can you share with us about that?
First of all, I do agree with you that we do experience many, many, many deaths. In fact, change brings death. So it means end of this and beginning perhaps of that, but we only focus on the end of this. And yes, I am facing it in a very real way, in real time, because I'm a caregiver to my 93-year-old mother, and I'm seeing her like moving down the hall of life and how she's towards the end of the hall, so to speak. Yeah, it's like very alive for me. And also, many people around me have passed on. And I don't know if that is only my view. I've experienced the rate of death that I'm hearing about since COVID, and not just because of COVID, but since COVID, has really increased. Like I never heard about so many deaths in life in any given week or month. So yes, at the personal level and collective level, correct. And in a symbolic way also. So when we speak about death, it's like at so many levels.
Can you tell me more? It's really interesting to me to hear you, before we started this interview, to hear you say that it like hit you. You knew it was inevitable. You're very familiar with the experience of death in your life. You've lost significant people in your life along your journey, including your father at a young age. And it was interesting to me to hear you say that, wow, it really hit me. Can you tell us a little bit more about that, what you're experiencing?
And I've had the honor of being in the room when people pass on. For some reason, people think of me, and I've been in many rooms. I've been honored to do that. But at the personal level, especially the mother is the one who brought us to this world. And especially my mother, because I lost my father at a very young age. The only parent I know is my mother. And after many years of being away, I came to where my mother is, and now I'm her sole caregiver. So a few nights ago, she had a difficult night, and I asked her how it was for her. She said, I actually thought that I'm leaving my body. And I started praying because she believed in that. And she was praying whatever she thought would be appropriate for leaving her body. And when she said that, looking at her frail body, I thought, oh my God, it's funny when I say that out loud. Of course, I know we all go. Of course, I know that she will probably go in the next, few years. But it's just when it hits you, and that's the human side of us, as you very wisely reminded me of, that we know, and we know it will happen, and we know it will happen to us and our loved ones. But there is a moment that you think, oh my God, it actually may take place soon. And it was just very interesting that I teach on this subject of being holding the space for many people. I have a very solid belief about the energy and matter and what happens to us. But I shared with you a poem that I wrote recently, which was about that. Like, we are the drops that going back to the ocean. However, it's hard when you feel it's going to take place. You're going to experience it. It takes it to a real human loss and separation. I mean, the first thought I had was like, I'm going to miss her. I'm going to really miss my mom. Sounds crazy at this age talking about it, but I do. I will miss my mom. It's going to be hard because I spent past around 20 years really being with her, and more every year and every month my care for her people went up. First was just giving her a ride because she wasn't driving, and then it was just doing this, doing that, and now it's everything. It's bathing her, it's feeding her, it's making sure to that she's taken her supplements and medications and things that she needs to do. And it's just fascinating, fascinating how, as human beings, no matter what we believe in and what we know, this deep sense of suffering about physical separation that is
Mm-hmm.
bound to happen, you know,
Mm.
between me and my world and my loved ones and everybody else in my life, you know, like when I die, like even with our relationship, like how would you experience it when I leave my body? Like what would happen? How do you see the world differently when that happens? And I'm not even, related to you in the sense of blood.
Yeah, particularly for you because your mom has become such a significant part of your life over the last 20 years. You caretaking for her, your life in a way has revolved around her and her needs.
Yes.
What happens when that is gone now? There's this big hole, if you will, figuratively, that would need to
Yes.
be filled.
Yes.
Um, I'm curious to understand your whole process through this. So, how have you been navigating what has been the reality of what has come up for you?
The first thing that happened was, what would I have liked to been doing with her if this was the experience that I'm feeling would be after she leaves her body? What would I have liked to do? How would I have liked to talk to her? How would I have liked to treated her? And I started doing that. So that was a beautiful transition that happened, that I started talking to her the way I thought I would have liked to. The way like I'm spending, as I said, a lot of time now. I had like friends visiting from out of the country, out of town, and I'm not going out with them. I mean, the ones that I really needed to see, I asked them to come and see me in my mom's home because that's where
Mm.
I'm spending most of the time these days. Both me and my partner, Henry, and I are spending a lot of time there with my mom. And it's very interesting what's happening. It's opening a very compassionate door for me, because when you do things professionally, it's very different than when you do them personally, even though my profession is so close and personal for me. I mean, it's not like I go to work, I'm not an attorney. It's all about compassionate work. It's all about connection and relationship and humanness. But yet, it's different when I'm experiencing it at this level.
Mm.
And it's beautifully, gently harsh. That's the way I can describe it for myself. It's a beautiful tasting, like almost I don't know if you experience this, but when I get sick, there's a almost pleasure. Sounds crazy when I say it though. There's a pleasure in my pain. It's like my
Mm.
body has a bit of pain, but it's like pleasureful to just rest it.
Mm. Yeah,
So
yeah.
that combo was evident in me, especially last night. My partner and I sat down and talked about our loved ones, the ones that have left their bodies, the ones that we think might leave their body soon. And it was just beautiful to stay in that space that is both harsh and difficult, yet human, inevitable, beautiful, and sounds like necessary, apparently. Otherwise, universe
Yeah,
wouldn't be offered to us.
yeah. I imagine a part of you knows that is, you know, hard as it might be, and as much as pain you might experience with the process, that there invariably is a blessing, knowing behind it that the pain always has something to teach us, to show us.
And also in the case of death, I mean, we're going home. I mean,
Yeah.
sometimes I feel that, and it's not the desire to die. It's not like, feeling suicidal, but that yearning, I call it drop, going back to the ocean. It's like that journey is beautiful, but the drop also wanted to be experiencing itself as a drop. So there is pleasure in that, and the pain of leaving that dropness that I had, but there's also pleasure of joining the ocean. So it's a beautiful combination of pleasure and pain. So human, so gentle, so loving. I was just beautifully feeling the drops of tears every time. Like I heard my partner talk about his loved one. He was talking about his father and his father's last days on earth, but it wasn't a difficult tears and difficult crying. It was just smiling and crying. That how beautiful it is that we come, we experience, we leave behind experiences and sometimes children, and then we leave, but we never leave.
It's interesting because, if we were to draw the connection to the death of a relationship, for example, the ending of a relationship, a significant one in our life. Let's say you were married with someone for many years, and some part of you recognizes that it was for the best.
Mm-hmm.
You know that, both of you. Let's say it was a healthy divorce, that both partners came to the conclusion that, you know what, this is best. There's peace. They're amicable with each other, and yet the pain is there. So in terms of coping with that, it's really interesting. No matter how much we recognize it's for the better, the pain is there, and then the question is how long do we ride that pain? Some people will ride it for a shorter period of time and move on, and other people will stay in it for a longer period of time, eventually get over it, and other people it just kind of either explicitly or in a more subconscious way, it just continues to
Mm-hmm.
impact them. So how do you think you would cope
Mm-hmm.
with, let's say, the passing of your mother when that comes? So obviously the pain is there. We don't want to deny it.
Mm-hmm.
We don't want to deny the grief. Even no matter how much we know about her going on to a better place and everything, the grief is a natural process. So I'm curious to, how
Mm-hmm.
you cope with it, with these significant endings
So,
when they happen.
yeah, that's a great question. And let me tell you that I actually created a course and taught it at UCLA School of Neuroscience, which was called Mindful Endings. Because in our culture, in the current culture, the teachings and the practices are all about starting and initiating. I don't know of any place that teaches mindful endings, conscious endings. In fact, we're petrified of considering endings. We literally, in Farsi, we say, God forbid if such and such dies. And I say, if or when. They say, well, whatever. They don't want to talk. Like they don't mention the word death. I remember when I wanted to do the course, I wanted to say mindful death. And everybody said, no, 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 not death. Make it something else. I said, okay, endings, sure. But it's that fear. And I always say death has a really bad PR agency. It needs to change its agent because, like, just think about what comes to mind when I say death, like skeleton, like, oh, like things going like this. It's not a friendly, beautiful person sitting there. So I think we have made a devil and horror around death. And then we're afraid of it. Death, in fact, to me, is the most misunderstood and most inevitable experience all human beings are going to have. And all these anti-aging things that we do, that really partially is because we want to look good and live long, but really is that we haven't sorted out what death is. And once we understand death as very simple end, and once we understand that the opposite of death is birth, not life, life
do you,
continues.
oh, I see. The opposite of death is birth. So life goes on after death,
Life goes on.
a
Yes,
different
it's
kind of
not.
life.
Exactly. And then that goes for everything. The moment, like when people, as you said, like relationships, that I can't tell you how exactly I will be when my mother leaves her body, but I can tell you how I have been with all the other losses that I have gone through. I mean, I've moved so many times. I had to leave friends behind, relationships behind, possessions behind. I mean, try walking out, and you did for fire, but that's different. You're still in the same city and the same country. Try like literally leaving your country with nothing. And I had to do that at the very early stages of my life. Like I was just, what should I take? Because I could only take a very light bag. I didn't know how I'm going to, be and where I'm going to be. So I took some photos, funny photos of my family. I didn't have clothing when I got to the first place I got to. I had to go and do some shopping. I didn't have anything to wear. So what is important to me? I have experienced that and I know how I've done it. I go through burst of grief, and I do not go through the process that they have determined. I've looked at that process and never,
The
ever
7-step process for
I
grief,
have
whatever it
not.
is.
I'm sorry to disappoint people that think everything has a process and it's like already determined. I go through a huge burst. Like I actually motivate myself to cry and to mourn and do love, get it out of my system.
Get
And
it out of the
then
system.
just get it out of the system. My human aspect says, but I'm not going to, but it was so good. And then I worked so hard, and it's like, okay, I hear you. I let myself vent in the most dramatic way possible. I encourage it. I prepare for it. I actually invite it, and I do it. And then once that's done, it's just like, good. I have a very good digestive system in life.
Yeah, yeah, that's really powerful, especially coming from you. The person who talks about death so openly, who recognizes that death is not really an ending, it's actually a beginning of a new chapter. To really see, because I think people have a tendency to put you on a pedestal, like you don't suffer, you Mitra, you're the wise one, you don't deal with any of this. But no, you're very human, and you recognize that your humanness does grieve. And no matter how much you know about death and how it's not a true ending, you experience grief and you're honoring that. You're
Yes.
honoring that and you're allowing your humanness to express itself so that you can move on.
Yes. And then I go
And
to the higher self.
because I can see, I can see how I might fall into even the trap of trying to convince myself that there's not a reason to grieve. No, I don't need to grieve. I'm telling myself that I'm losing something, but I'm not really losing anything. Look at what David Hawkins say, people who I follow, or look at what no, there's no need to be. And repressing that grief that really is not going anywhere. If I repress it, it's being stored somewhere, and it's going to come up at some point. So I love that. I love that despite all of your wisdom, you honor your humanness
Yes.
and
And it's
give it.
there.
Yeah.
And it's there. If I can't hide it, I'll be feeling double bad if I hid that, because then I feel not authentic and in pain. So it is what it is. And if that teaches us anything, is to just be okay with whatever it is. If I want to really hail and then cry, and I really encourage that, as you know, I've talked about that many times, it's just like, good, let it be. There is, you really are taking this bad and good and right and wrong and high and low away from your humanness. It's a sense of liberation, actually. You feel liberated because you are allowed to do what you're allowed to do. And whatever I'm feeling, I'm going to do it. There is the human aspect of me, physical aspect of me, the one that is attached to earth and to people on earth. I'm going to honor that. And then when I honor that, that allows me to also honor my less visible, my more energy, my more whatever it's called, that side of me, the Yekibud and Yekinabud of me, the visible and invisible part of me. Because I honor this, I can easily honor the other one. This is not matter of choosing. It's like matter of seeing what's available right now. Crying is available. Mourning and really expressing my pain is available. And I'm going to welcome it. As Rumi says, welcome all your guests, the invited ones and the uninvited ones, the ones that are welcomed and the ones that are not welcomed, because every single one of them has a gift for you.
What's the difference between healthy grieving and unhealthy grieving?
I can only tell you about what I believe is healthy, because this is all so personal. A healthy grieving is doing it because it's there, because you're feeling it. And the unhealthy one is to seeing this as an eternal state that I need to be in. As this is my state. I'm the unlucky one. I lost this person, this relationship, this thing that I had, this job, this friendship, this home, this experience. I mean, I can go on. And I so-called lost it. That's it. There's a period there. With the healthy one, this is a comma. I've lost blah 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 blah, comma. I'm still whole. I'm still whole. You cannot make whole less whole. When you're connected to your higher self, you are whole. Whatever you take from whole, the whole is still whole. It never is less than. Because when I make room in my life for that which had served its purpose to leave my consciousness and my awareness, other things become available to me. And the wholeness of me stays whole. So I'm not really losing anything. I am ending one experience and welcoming the next. But when it becomes this state and period, I've lost it and that's it, then it becomes very unhealthy, because that means that my life was defined by things and experiences, not by anything beyond that.
Yeah, because I can see, I think back to, it was a while ago, but an ending of a relationship, a significant relationship in my life. I gave myself permission to grieve, but the way I was doing it, actually, it made me feel worse. I didn't feel like I was moving energy. I felt like I was giving energy to the grief. And so like I went through this process of grieving, and then but when I finished it, I felt more grief, or I felt like it intensified, it amplified. And I didn't feel like a movement of energy. I felt more of it was just a recirculation of the energy. What beliefs was I holding on to, or what paradigm was I approaching it with that made it feel cyclical and made it actually feel worse? And then I concluded that no, grieving, I'm not going to grieve. It makes me feel worse. But my perspective is very different now. But I'm thinking about what was it? What is the shift? And you alluded to it in your response just now, that it's a comma, it's not a period. But I'm curious to hear what you have to say about this, and what you think are like the perspectives that could cause someone to go into the loop rather than to the letting go.
One is exactly what you just said, that I'm not allowed to. That sign of there's something wrong with that. I'm not elevated enough. I'm not strong enough. If I allow grieving and going through pain become my experience. So that's, I call it shoulding ourselves, or I'm shoulding myself. I should not. I know better. I should not. And I'm thinking, what? Like, if I do, I do. It's like saying you should not be thirsty right now. And you say, but Mitra, I'm thirsty. I'm saying, yeah, you should not be. Do not drink water. And it's like you can't should human experiences. If it's there, you need to welcome it and work with it.
So what I'm thinking about right now as you're saying this is that my grieving was not total. I had actually set guardrails.
Yes.
It was not a
Yes.
total agreement. I was like, okay, I'm gonna grieve. I'm gonna let myself grieve, but with these parameters and these guardrails, and it's not
Yes.
total. And because it's not total, it's not actually an organic grieving. It's a controlled grieving. It was still a controlled grieving,
Yes.
despite me thinking I was allowing it to happen
Yeah.
totally. Yeah.
Shooting yourself. Like people at my level or men around this age or those who are spiritual people, that's a worst one. Spiritual people should not. It's like what? Like who says who? I always, when people say, but they say, I say, who is they? Who said how I should feel? Like you can't tell people how they should feel because their feeling is far more valid and alive than what I have decided it needs to be. So, yeah, just being open and really allowing the feelings to be there if they're there and working with that. I think that's the first thing that happens when we stop. Or the other extreme is that I let that become my only experience for a long time. It is, of course, obviously, and that's why if you look at old cultures, I once researched the different ways different cultures grieve and mourn when somebody passes away. And it was fascinating to just watch how every culture had a different way of doing it. One wanted to sing and dance and celebrate right away. I remember when my Buddhist monk teacher passed away and I went to his memorial, I saw all of his monk students like laughing and having fun, and I was in tears, and I sat in tears and I talked with my tears and I said, I'm glad you monks can do that, but I can't. Right now, I'm feeling a loss. I'm feeling there's no one I can call. And I traveled
Mhm.
with him, and he was an important part of my journey. And I'm going to do what I'm going to do. And I remember somebody was with me and say, they don't cry. I said, good for them. I do.
Mhm.
I cry. And I love my crying. So there is no, I'll be respectful of cultures, but I cannot be disrespectful of my emotions.
Yeah. And one thing that's coming to me is that what sometimes can keep us in the loop is our unwillingness to let go of some sort of idea or belief that we have. For
Hmm.
example, I am incomplete without this person. And so we cling on tight to that whole belief, right? And it prevents us from being able to actually move past the grief. And so I think an important part of the process is, yes, let the emotion be expressed fully and totally, and then look at the beliefs and the script that we're telling ourselves. And when we're in a more grounded place after releasing, we can get more clarity. But we got to be willing to question
Hmm.
the the beliefs that we're holding on to. Am
Yes.
I, you know, I'm saying that I'm incomplete without this person. Am I? But not only am I, the other question is like, how am I benefiting from holding on to this belief?
Or
Because
another belief might be that that's the only way I can learn from this person. This person needs to have physicality. You won't believe how deep I have gone with the teachings I have received from teachers who no longer have physicality. So I've had time to contemplate. It's like, aha moments. Like hear something and like 5 days later, you say, that's what Mitra was saying. I got a lot of aha moments, and my teachers are not even here. Or with my father's memory, for instance, like I now understand what he was doing when I was 6 and I asked him that, and he took me to this place and said, what about this? All these stories found their meanings and found their depths literally decades later.
hmm,
So is he gone in physical form? Yes. Is he in energetic form? I don't know where he's at. I hope wherever he is, he's having fun. I'm referring to my father. But has he continued teaching me? Yes, I have gone deeper with the lessons that I thought I got from him.
yeah.
So nothing ends.
Yeah,
Nothing.
and I think the key is that yes, I'm grieving. Yes, it hurts. And I also understand there's a deeper meaning. I don't know what that deeper meaning is,
Yes.
but I know that it's there and I'm open
Yes.
to receive it,
Exactly.
opening oneself to receive it. Our emotions can be so tricky because sometimes we hold on to the grief because maybe there's guilt underneath that. And we don't even recognize that, right? We're holding on to the grief and we're like, this person is gone. I feel so hurt. I feel so hurt. And we don't recognize that underneath that, maybe there's guilt. It could also, this also applies to a relationship, right? Guilt that I wasn't the best son, partner, mother, whatever that I could have been. And so when we open ourselves to the question of there must be a deeper meaning, these things will reveal themselves because we start asking those questions, and those questions invariably will lead us to the underlying things. Like, oh, wow, I have a lot of guilt.
Mm-hmm.
So now it's not necessarily about the grief, it's about the guilt that's underneath the grief. What is
Yeah.
this guilt showing me? And that's very revealing.
Mm-hmm.
And we begin to unravel this thing, and then the blessing and the meaning, deeper meaning, reveals itself.
Yes, we should talk about guilt one time. That's a
Yeah.
great subject to talk about. That would be a beautiful way of speaking about, because I know, admitting or not admitting, many of us feel guilty about a lot of things, and it would be good to unfold it. It's like jealousy. These are important human emotions that we suffer in hiding, and there's a conspiracy of silence around them. People say these things and they don't really unfold it in a way that it's helpful. So I would love to talk about that. But on the subject of death and endings, I would love to hear how different people, different cultures, different communities work with this. I was always curious about that. And I would love to hear from our listeners, what are certain ways that you personally or you collectively work through losses and deaths in your life?
Yes. Please share. We love to hear from you all. Mitra, this was a humbling conversation, and one I'm very grateful for. Thank you for sharing with us, being vulnerable with us.
Thank you for your curiosity, Ben. You know, we go to deep places together. Thank you.
All right. Until next time. Thank you so much for tuning in today. For a list of the links and other resources referenced in this episode, check out the podcast description.
If you're benefiting from our podcast, we'd love if you could help us reach more people by subscribing. Your support means the world to us. From our hearts to yours, we thank you.